Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering verbal jiu-jitsu. Woke liberals are hilariously being humiliated by what they think is verbal jiu-jitsu by conservatives and normal people. This is from an article that came out from CNN. I thought it was a joke, like a lot of these articles seem like they are, but no, they're serious and they're really worried about the implications this could have for being able to push their agenda. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. I'm trying to get to 30,000 subscribers, so if you can subscribe, please do subscribe. From CNN, how conservatives use verbal jiu-jitsu to turn liberals' language against them. This is a real political article. We'll get into the details. It really is pretty funny, and the lack of self-awareness is incredible. Before we do, let's get a quick proper definition of what verbal jiu-jitsu is. This is actually from a jiu-jitsu studio. They thought it would be a good idea to put up an article about verbal jiu-jitsu, and they're right. Verbal jiu-jitsu is about using words to diffuse a situation and take the wind out of someone's sails. It's a way of diffusing tension and preventing an argument from escalating. And it's something you can use the next time you're in conflict at work. Here are 5 ways to do it. 1. Acknowledge the other person's feelings. This is a great thing to do. It also works in conversation and in sales. When someone says, look, you really need to do this way, or you need to start to accept that racism is only about one race. It's not about any other races. When you acknowledge that that is not a statement of fact, but it's a statement of feeling, and you say, oh, I understand that you feel that way, and then you make a statement contrary to that, it puts their statement in the frame of feelings and separates it from fact. The first step in using verbal jiu-jitsu is to acknowledge the other person's feelings. This shows them that you understand where they're coming from and that you're open to hearing them out. For example, you might say something like, I can see that you're angry, frustrated, and upset. Reflect back what the other person has said. Once you've acknowledged the other person's feelings, the next step is to reflect back what they've said. This helps to diffuse the situation and gives the other person the chance to clarify their position. For example, you might say something like, well, so if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're saying is X. Of course, that is pretty frustrating to have that done, but let them have to explain themselves. They really aren't able to do that. They're just repeating things that they're told without any thought. Ask questions. Asking questions is a great way to diffuse tension and keep a conversation from spiraling out of control. For example, you might say something like, can you help me understand why X is important to you? Make statements rather than accusations. When we're in the heat of the moment, it's easy to let our emotions get the better of us and start making accusations rather than statements. But when we make an accusation, it puts the other person on the defensive and makes them less likely to listen to us. For example, rather than saying, you never listen to me, try something like, I feel like I'm not being heard, which again is a brilliant use of the difference between fact and feeling. Because even if someone doesn't intend to make you feel like you're not being heard, if you say, I feel like I'm not being heard here, or I feel like you're not listening to me, there's no way to contradict that. A statement about how you feel, by definition, is fact for you. A statement about what's actually a fact between two people's points of view is something both sides have to accept. But you can always say, I feel like this, and be correct no matter what you're saying. Seek common ground. Finding common ground is a great way to reduce tension and build rapport with the other person. When we can find things that we agree on, it helps us create a sense of teamwork and cooperation, even if we don't see eye to eye on everything else. For example, you might say something like, I know we don't agree on X, but one thing we can both agree on is Y. Now we know that the woke people want you to submit. They can't really find common ground. Here's an example of someone completely melting down and realizing, in reality, as a matter of fact, all of the woke stuff always falls apart and fails because all they're trying to do is say, listen, here's your new reality. Here's the word we redefined for you. Oh, by the way, you're not allowed to drive cars anymore. We're going to make you use an electric car until we tell you you're no longer allowed to have an electric car. But don't worry, it's good for the environment. They make broad, wild statements and expect by making the statement, all of a sudden it will be accepted and true. Why? Because they're the kind of people that accept whatever's told to them by some authority. The two frontrunners for the White House in 2024 are tied in a hypothetical rematch. Congress is paralyzed. Every big election seems to be decided by razor-thin margins. and mail-in ballots. But there is one political battleground where Republicans triumph virtually every time, and control of this area could determine who wins the White House in 2024. Republicans are masters of verbal jiu-jitsu. And here's what they claim verbal jiu-jitsu is. It's a form of linguistic combat in which the practitioner takes a political phrase or concept popularized by their opponent and gradually turns into an unusable slur. Like the Japanese martial art known as jiu-jitsu. Its devotees avoid taking opposing arguments head-on and instead redirect their opponent's momentum to beat them. The real definition has nothing to do with politics. Now, I know this is about jiu-jitsu, it's not about ninjas. But I do love ninjas, and I never got a chance to use ninjas, so that's my ninja. If this sounds abstract, consider the evolution of woke. The word is defined as being actively aware of social justice, but it has been transformed into a contemporary scourge, one that a politician compared to a virus more dangerous than any pandemic, hands down. Mention almost any touchstone phrase adopted by the woke left in recent years, critical race theory, diversity, global warming, even the word liberal itself, and it's been redefined or tarnished by conservatives. They throw their words at you and tell you to accept their redefinition of words and their created new words. No, you can't have equality anymore. Now you have to have equity, and equity doesn't mean equality, and equity means you need to do this, you need to do that, and change your life that way. And no, you can't have opportunity based on merit anymore because we said so, and you're just supposed to accept that and not at least ask questions about it? That's why the totalitarian nature of the woke stuff is so dangerous. They really believe you're supposed to just accept what they tell you is reality, no matter how different it is from what it was yesterday, and you're supposed to accept it, like it, and just obey. That's why we say no, because we're not looking to change our lives upside down for some wacky theory that only gives power to their tyrannical overlords. Now you see the jealousy. Meanwhile, Republicans continue to proudly use words and pet phrases such as family values, conservative, and patriot, no matter who or what is associated with the terms. Meaning whatever they do to attack family values, it just doesn't work. Same as patriot. People love their country. You can try to make that a bad word, but it's not going to affect the people that love their country, because that's what patriot means. As candidates prep for the first 2024 GOP presidential debate Wednesday in Milwaukee, it's a good time to ponder this question: why are Republicans so good at this form of verbal combat and Democrats so bad? The left can't meme. Part of the answer comes down to effort and discipline. Republicans devote more time to tumbling words into weapons and do a better job of sticking to their message, says Lindsay Cormack, a political scientist who focuses on race, gender, communications, and politics at Stevens Institute of Technology in New Jersey. Quote, I've been studying their communications for 15 years, and it sort of blows me away because I think Democrats are good at doing plenty of things, but they really drop the ball on the communications piece a lot. If they could get messages across in a compelling way, people would still reject those messages because a lot of them are disgusting. They're not pro-human. They're not beautiful. They don't celebrate life. So it's not the style of the messaging. It's the message. It's a horrible message. Quote, they, conservatives, think about what words resonate, what words cue other sorts of thoughts, or what sort of images come to mind with people when they're hearing messages, Comac says. They seem to have more invested in that, and they have more people who write about that sort of work and linguists who do these sorts of things for them. I'm not aware of any conservative linguists doing work for anyone. Sometimes they disarmed a liberal phrase by transforming its meaning. Social justice warrior, for example, didn't start off as an insult. What's wrong with someone fighting on behalf of the poor and exploited? Of course there's nothing wrong with fighting for someone who is poor and exploited. What's wrong is how they abuse the opportunity by trying to take a, quote, moral stance. They're not really moral. They don't actually care about people. They care about virtue signaling or abusing power. Then the term was turned by conservatives and internet culture into something else, a whiny, self-righteous progressive who can't take a joke. Well, the description fits. Recent years have brought numerous headlines about another liberal term that has been dismantled by the right. Critical race theory was once an obscure academic discipline that insisted that racism is more than individual prejudice. It's embedded in laws, policies, and institutions. But conservatives redirect the discussion and turn the term into a catch-all phrase that criticizes virtually any examination of systemic racism or history that could make white people feel uncomfortable. Well, that's a racist statement to begin with. If you want to inject moral superiority for one race over another race, real Americans are going to stand in the way of that. They're not interested in that, particularly not interested in having that in schools and pushing that on children with their anti-racist baby books and things like that. White babies are not born racist. Black babies are not born racist. It doesn't work that way. And if you agreed to go along with their religion of racism, they would get a tremendous amount of power that they could use for control. Whatever the method, this form of verbal jiu-jitsu is used for one purpose, says Robin DiAngelo, author of White Fragility, a popular book that spawned another popular liberal catchphrase. The function is to silence the conversation and to protect the status quo, DiAngelo says. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to work and get race off the table and prevent any challenges to the status quo. How diversity and equity became dirty words. Because they used them as weapons, and they changed the definition of them. Next on the hit list are two other terms favored by liberals, diversity and equity, DiAngelo says. Those words originally meant values that were virtually universally accepted. Not many people would openly argue for exclusion or inequity, except the people that redefined them to mean that. In recent years, many institutions have launched initiatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion to make their workplaces more fair and diverse. No, it's to judge people based on the color of their skin. We don't like that in America. But Republican leaders are now comparing DEI initiatives to wokeness and loyalty oaths. They've introduced bills cutting DEI programs in public universities and corporate America. Why can't we just push our agenda in public universities and also force it on employees and judge them not on their merit, but on the color of their skin? Let's do that. No, you're going to get pushback from normal people. Paulette Granberry Russell, president of the National Association of Diversity Officers and Higher Education, recently told a reporter she doesn't use the acronym DEI anymore because it's been weaponized. It's been exposed. Republicans have also sought to reframe equity, which means being fair or impartial, by calling the word a mandate to discriminate. Well, that is what they're doing. That's not what the word means. That's what they've done to the word. They're destroying the meaning of words. And they have attempted to delegitimize diversity by expanding the term to diversity industrial complex, which a critic describes as a bureaucratic juggernaut running roughshod over every aspect of national life. Well, I mean, it is what they're actually doing. Was what happened at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021 an insurrection? Or was it what some GOP leaders have called legitimate political discourse? Was former President Trump exercising free speech when he questioned the 2020 presidential election results? Or did he attempt to defraud the U.S.? And will words like diversity and inclusion be turned into another version of woke, which they kind of already are, terms so tarnished by relentless attacks that even their proponents are reluctant to use them? Some form of verbal jiu-jitsu may determine the answers to those questions. It's shaped the nation's history more than many people realize. Always interesting to see an article where people are realizing, hey, our nonsense just actually isn't working. How come you don't allow us to completely redefine your reality to whatever we think it should be? Well, that might be a little bit too extreme for people that just want to live their lives and enjoy living really in the greatest country in the world, the United States of America. And if you don't like the country and you don't like its values, you're not going to get everyone else in the country to change their values to match yours to create some sort of strange, ever-changing, non-sovereign nation that is one unit controlled by a larger global economic forum. Generally speaking, conservatives, normal people, we're just not into that. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.